All right, let's get going here. Tommy, it's noon. We try to start these things and end these things on time. Thank you very much for joining me today. We've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about with automation and technology in accounting. And there is so much going on. I feel like it's happening at warp speed, and I'm really excited to have you here to help us kind of understand this and what's going on. So for those of you out there in the audience world, I'm Matt Garrett. I'm the CEO of TGG. We are an outsourced accounting firm. We also do staffing and recruiting, as well as we have a technology division that we'll talk a little bit more about today as we get into this. But I feel like if we don't have a technology division, or if you're an accounting firm without a technology division, you are very quickly being left behind. So Tommy, why don't you introduce yourself here, and then we'll kick it off.
Yeah, appreciate that, Matt. So glad to be here, and thanks for the warm welcome, Matt. You're right, there's a lot going on, so I'm excited to talk about it today as well. So my background is pretty much entirely in technology. I got started in my career right out of school, going up to Silicon Valley, working at different startups, and I've seen everything from, high-flying multiple billion-dollar kind of fundraising rounds and all of that to exits on the multiple billion-dollar level, and been a part of those myself. Started a company called Yammer and was acquired by Microsoft early in my career. And I ended up having the pleasure of spending some time at Microsoft, quite a few years, as the first go-to-market team selling Office 365. That was quite a while back now. And then kind of carried on through my career. And I've made pit stops at companies like Dell Technologies, and then dove my head into deep data integration and API-led integration, some of the more technical side of the house. So done a little bit of it all. Most recently, I was at a global company called Grammarly, which I think probably a lot of people are familiar with, and I was heading up the enterprise sales segment there. We're selling into Fortune 100 companies on how to use natural language processing and artificial intelligence to improve communications in these global companies. And now I've got the distinct pleasure of leading the technical division for TGG. So thanks, Matt.
Well, we are very excited to have you because you are an absolute wealth of knowledge, and it's going to really bode well for the folks on this call today. There was an article that just came out of Forbes titled "The Coming Demise and Rebirth of the Accounting Profession," and interestingly, it's a fascinating look. I don't know if this is all the way back to Adam Smith kind of economics, but essentially saying that accountants are going to be infinitely replaceable, and then not. And it's a really interesting way to look at this. So what I want to talk about today is what's going on in the accounting world that is making accountants replaceable. What is the good in that? What is the bad in that? What do we need to be prepared for? And how is that going to change how we run our businesses as we move forward? So one of the things that I thought was really interesting is this concept here that we've got in technology right now. Everybody is talking about AI and everything else that's going on with it. There were some really interesting stats that accountants in this article had said 94% of them think that technology is going to replace accountants. That's a pretty astounding number.
Right.
And yet they said 60% of them believe that small business owners do not understand what's coming. So today I'd like to make sure we get some of this out there, and I kind of want to do a past, present, and future. Because one of the things I think was really interesting to me when you and I were talking about this is kind of the history of this. All kind of started with blockchain a number of years ago, like 15, 20 years ago. So can you tell me a little bit about, can you explain to us in layman's terms that we can actually understand what is the blockchain?
I'll do my best, that's for sure. So by the way, I'll go back to the title of the article. You got to love the media, right? The demise and the rebirth.
Demise.
So dramatic. But yeah, okay, so let's talk about blockchain a little bit, because blockchain's been around for a bit now. And gosh, going all the way back to the white paper around Bitcoin in 2009, and that's when blockchain really became a part of the conversation with Bitcoin back then. But I think that what's interesting about blockchain is that, the association that most people have is still strictly with crypto, right? It's like, oh, cryptocurrency is blockchain. It's a one part of one technology, and you can't decouple them. And that's definitely pretty far from the truth, actually. So blockchain and crypto, or rather crypto, think of it as just one use case of what blockchain technology can ultimately do for us. But the goal of blockchain, is really to try to create some kind of a trustless system, right? And really, it's about identifying, people on the internet or transactions and logging those in what we call blocks, if you will. Or another way to think about the blocks is a public ledger system, right? And when we moved to digital transactions, let's just say 15, 20 years ago, code can be manipulated and things like that. And so there was always this worry about, is my transaction even real? Is this person, am I getting frauded? Defrauded here? How do I ensure that these people are who they say they are, that my money is going to go to where it says it's going to go? And so we created, in the process, and even in the non-digital world, a lot of intermediaries, right? There's third parties like banks and whatnot that kind of mediate all of these different both financial transactions and non-financial transactions. And so the role of blockchain is kind of an idea of getting rid of the middlemen, right? The idea is, how do we streamline things? If I want to buy, a sandwich at the deli, I got to go through currently like a payment portal, right? It's Visa, it's MasterCard, it's Venmo, it's whatever you use. But why can't I just pay the person, the owner of the deli who made the sandwich directly, goes direct into his account? And I think that is the idea of what blockchain can empower. The thing is, there's different blockchains, right? So there's a blockchain for Bitcoin, and that blockchain records all the transactions going on in Bitcoin. There's other blockchains you can use as well for supply chain management and things like that. So
Yeah.
it is a technical world. I'll be the first one to tell you that, but it's without getting lost in the details, it just has so many applications in the business landscape.
Yeah, I noticed Jamie Dimon talked about using the blockchain about 10 years ago as basically the way to guarantee that they knew exactly who was on which side of the stock trades. And I thought that was so fascinating because it actually started to make sense to me that blockchain is, the way I understand it, it's just a way to prove who you're doing business with and eliminate the fraud. And like you say, the middleman almost, right? The friction, it gets to a lot less friction in the middle of a transaction. And I think it's really fascinating what's going on. But I think the blockchain thing is really important to understand as we think that's where the past is, but it's got the platform to give us what we need in the future. Because one of the big problems we have in accounting has always been, the fidelity of the numbers. How do we get accuracy? How do we get timeliness? Well, with the blockchain, if you can prove you know exactly who you're doing business with, and it'll do it for you, and you don't have to use a middleman, that eliminates a lot of inaccuracy. Kind of that's the way I see it in accounting. So talk to me a little bit, if we're taking the blockchain and building off of it. The other thing that I see being built off of this is automations and other types of software that are now starting to integrate with the blockchain. Talk to me a little bit about what is sort of what are the term automation software? What does that mean? And what are the different flavors of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could almost look at blockchain as a subset of automation, if you will. We're automating the idea of creating a decentralized ledger to verify, like you said, Matt, the fidelity of transactions, right? That's automatically being done versus on a pen and a paper, as we did it once before, right? So, but anyway, if we kind of zoom out a little bit more to automations, as you mentioned, automation's been around for a long time as well. It's you go back all the way like if-then statements. If A, then do B, right? And so you could always program that into computers for decades now, but it was super simple, right? If 4 plus 5, then 9, right? So, going back to a calculator, but as time has evolved, we've gotten better. Those automations have gotten better and a little bit more complex, which is great. We're always trying to automate repetitive and more simple human tasks, and the non-creative work, if you will. And as time has gone on, we've gotten better at that. But automation generally still has been very, very code heavy, right? Especially when you're dealing with large organizations or large marketplaces and landscapes, it can get very complicated. So these systems can tend to be, or historically, have been a little bit rigid, right? Where it's like if there's a data point that falls out of the trained model, it just breaks. It doesn't know what to do with it historically. And that has gotten a lot better recently as well.
Yeah, I know a lot of our clients are using things like Bill.com, Expensify, the ramp card, you know, and I think about the evolution of this where we did like online bill pay, and that was really cool like 10 years ago. And now we've got these automated systems and softwares. You know, I use this ramp credit card and it's just amazing. You know, travel, I get a text from it and says, put your, you know, send a picture of your receipt. It uses the blockchain to know where I'm at and who I've done business with. It uses AI to read the actual receipt, and then it instantly puts it into my books and reconciles it without a human touching it. That seems like where we're kind of headed. What is the difference between that kind of stuff, which is software, and this other term that's floating out there, RPAs, robotic process automation, which sounds like some like, you know, Star Wars thing.
Arm that's going to grab off the assembly line and
That's right. That's what I think of when I think of like robotic process automation. But would talk to me a little bit about kind of what's the difference here between these softwares and this new term RPAs that has now come out, and how should we think about using them either in concert or are they competing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is where it starts to get a little bit more interesting, and I'll pull it back out a little bit back to general automation, right? Because it's a good compare and contrast. But as I kind of mentioned, general automation's been around for a long time, but it was heavy coding, heavy implementation, and it was kind of hardwiring it, right? It's like making anything by hand, making your own pencil. It'd like take you all day to make a pencil, right? But you just go buy one, right? And so with automation, it was a little bit reserved for the people that had the resources, both time, energy, money, and talent, to be able to do those kinds of things, to do really, really productive automations and build those. Now, fast forward, time is on our side in the sense that technology keeps getting better and better. There's this thing called Moore's Law, right? Every
Yeah.
2 years, the technology doubles in power and then shrinks in size by about half. So it's getting better and smaller. Now, with that said, same with AI. AI has gotten better. And RPA is a subset of automation, robotic process automation, and it's leveraging AI, and it's basically like automation out of the box. You no longer have to have the time, the energy, the resources, and the other, and the talent to be able to do automations. You can use a company like UiPath and Blue Prism are probably two of the biggest ones on the block, right? And you can go out and be, a non-technical person and say, hey, look, I want to go subscribe to UiPath and I want to start automating some tasks. You can do that, right? It's automation out of the box, and the implementation is lightweight. You just kind of connect a couple of APIs. You kind of use a graphical interface, drag and drop what you want it to do, so you're not coding, and you can start to automate those tasks, right? Another one that's really popular today is Zapier. Zapier does a lot of data integration, one system to the next system to the next system. That's becoming a lot easier today as well.
Yeah, what I feel like going back to this article kind of in the beginning, like the death of the accountant and the rebirth. It sounds very, you know, biblical, but I think the death of the accountant is in these things are going to take away people. You're not going to need as many people, whether it's using a bill.com, which is just the software. The other part I've seen RPAs really work well is when you have a repetitive task that happens, you know, 1,000 times in a month, like, you know, invoice approvals or billing statements, things like that at large law firms. Like I've seen that stuff really work with this RPAs, but it feels like we definitely have to have still somebody, I do, let me say that, somebody helping to guide me between what's going to work best for my business. Because I've also seen people try to push RPAs onto small companies and they're like, well, I do 10 invoices a month. I don't need to spend $100,000 to develop an automated process for this. So how do you kind of weed through some of this stuff, and where are we going in the future?
Yeah, I think it's good questions. I think, it's funny, like the whole idea of humans getting automated out of a job is kind of always, I think, in the back of our minds when we're talking about automation and AI and pretty much all technology, right? It's been going on for a long time. I think, I think that people tend to underestimate the amount of creativity they do in their own jobs on a regular basis. I think that, you hear this idea, oh, it's going to automate a part of my job, I'm going to be out of work. And it's like, well, no, I think that we're trying to do is automate the lower value work out of the whole spectrum of work that you do in a given
Yeah,
day, and provide more time for the higher value work, right? And so when I think about something like, accountants, it's like there's a lot of human touch that goes into that, right? There's a lot of like people do have questions. They want it to be explained to them. And yes, things like GPT can do a little bit of that today, but there's still that human touch. I see this also, not to get too far out of our context today, but I see that with therapy as well. There's a lot of automated therapy bots out there. And
sure.
yet, I think there's a lack of a human touch in some of that stuff that is just not going to resonate with folks. And so I think fears tend to be overblown a little bit, no doubt.
No, I think that's right. I think there's always a need for somebody to be able to coach other folks into what is the right kind of source for this. But it feels like it falls into almost three categories for me, which is, how can we make this stuff more bulletproof in terms of the quality?
Mhm.
We're talking about accounting. One of the things I was just on a call with a person this morning doing an assessment of their financials, and they had really big mistakes in the equity section of their balance sheet. And it was throwing off numbers because people were using it as a plug to balance it, because that's how you learn to do it in accounting. You have to balance it. Everything's got to balance. But if we'd used, RPAs, or if we're using a piece of software, it doesn't have emotional needs to feel validated and to remember your accounting 100 class. It just does it right. So it feels like to me there's three kind of uses for technology that I think do replace people to some degree, but not entirely, and I think one of them has got to be data accuracy. Two has got to be efficiencies in terms of reporting. And the third, which we really haven't gotten into yet, and this is what I know a lot of people have a lot of interest in, is AI, which is how do we actually start to use the wisdom of the world, right, to give us analysis and thought on how we actually improve our business. So talk to me a little bit about kind of how all these things go together. What do we get to, how do we get into AI here and start to think about, like, how do we use software, which is sort of the Bill.coms of the world?
Yeah.
How do we use RPAs, which is layering in processes that are very repeatable that we want to automate, and then layer in some sort of AI so that we get to a point where we've got data integrity, speed, and then some really kind of interesting information. Where do you see this going?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think there's been we're covering quite a bit of ground here, and I think that it's really interesting because there's a lot of talk about AI, and I think let's spend a minute or two on AI, because I do want to unwind this one a little bit
Sure.
too. In the last 24 months, it's like Chat GPT this, AI that, AI this, Gen AI, and all this, and I think it's good to define what these things are. So similar to a lot of the technology we've already talked about today, AI is not like started last year. AI has been going, we've been working on AI for the better part of 20 years, right? And that's just really creating systems that can learn,
Mhm.
and frameworks. And, kind of fast forwarding a little bit, there's been a lot of talk recently because there's a new subset of AI called generative AI. And the way to think about that is really about the output. We've always, for a while now, we've been able to give machines kind of input and then have it pump out something. And as time has gone on, the machines have gotten better at taking in new input and unstructured data, right? It doesn't have to be in perfect ones and zeros and rows, all that kind of stuff. It's gotten better at taking in unstructured data and still being able to be productive and outputting something. Now, the interesting thing, the reason why everyone's talking about AI, and I'll circle this back around to accounting, is the reason everyone's talking about AI today is because the output is changing. Now the computer is actually not just pumping out an output like 1 + 1 = 2. It's more along the lines of original content, and that's a pretty big deal. And that's a leap we've only made in the last kind of 24 months, I'd say. And so
And
that
that's
becomes
right. Just to
interesting.
make sure I understand that, Tommy, that's called generative AI.
Correct. Yeah, that's called generative AI, and Chat GPT is just an application. It's just one tool that is leveraging generative AI.
So generative AI means really that it's intelligent in the way that it's actually coming up with its own answers, generating those answers almost. Is that the right way to think about it?
That's it. That's it. And so
Okay.
I think this all becomes pretty interesting for accounting and in our space, because it is a little bit of a match made in heaven, right? So accounting is, as you know, Matt, accounting's black and white. It might feel gray, but it's very black and white. There's a right and a wrong way to do it. And computer systems love that. They love the ability to have black and white, ones and zeros, as we say. Everything's binary. So it is a match made in heaven. And I think that because of that, there's a lot of like what we'll say, low value task work that can really get automated. Like you said, verifying transaction, accuracy and some of that data work that goes into it. Automating those things, but then now we can even go a step further and we can have the generative AI start to analyze the numbers. So if you want to look at your average, P&L statement, your average balance sheet, whatever it is, AI can now look at those numbers and start to generate original content around that and giving you a narrative, which I think is pretty exciting for sure.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We've seen, in the accounting industry, just as a trend, we've seen fewer and fewer accountants getting degrees. It's just, I think the statistic out of the Wall Street Journal was 13% fewer graduates from 2012 to 2022 in accounting. I know that accounting salaries have exploded because there's just a lack of good quality people. And it feels like there's got to be a way to automate some of this. So you need fewer people. So if we're going to layer this on, where's the first place we start in thinking about what software, what tech stack, for that technical term, what are the different softwares we need to use? Oh, and by the way, I want to make sure I tell everybody in the audience, I've seen there's a couple of questions in here. If you've got a question, feel free to shoot it out there and we'll do our best to integrate it into this. I'm kind of going off of some of this. The question was, how much is too much to spend on software for our accounting? And I kind of want to decouple this because most people think of accounting software as like QuickBooks, Sage, Microsoft Dynamics. That's what you think of as accounting software. But what we're really talking about now is layering on these other softwares, the Ramp, the maybe UiPath, maybe Expensify, Bill.com, all of these other things that are out there. What's the right kind of way to look at that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, look, especially as it relates to the profession itself, I think that it's about almost categorizing your time. It's almost like a time audit. Where is my time going in a given workday? How do I think about this? And as an accounting professional, we should be thinking about, or the accounting professional space, we should be thinking about those tasks and what can be automated. What the goal of technology is, whether it be accounting or anywhere else, is to amplify your impact. Right? I think anyone could probably say that they get a lot more done in a given day than we did 200 years ago. You can hit the bank, deposit checks, order your groceries online, and get a couple of work emails out in a given hour today, right? You can never do that, right? 20 years ago. So it's the same with accounting. It's okay. Well, am I verifying transactions? Am I doing the book work? Am I then doing charts and graphs? And how much am I spending on that? Which one of those can be automated so that I can spend more time on the stuff that can't be automated and developing customer relationships and things like that. And also how much, and I'll go into the generative AI part and say, there's also part of interpretation. What do I do about these numbers? Do I expand my sales team? Do I expand my locations? Do I make these things, make these decisions? And I think that's where generative AI can really come into the mix as well and be that kind of strategic guide for us as business owners to guide our business into a more profitable space that's going to improve our enterprise value of our companies ultimately.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I've always told people that it's not the software. The software is just a database. Yep. There are certain softwares for certain industries that are better in terms of these things. But it's really about the implementation of the software, which always costs 3 times as much as you think and takes 3 times as long as you think.
Oh, yeah.
But I try to break it down into, I used to say an accounting department should cost you 1 to 3% of revenue. 3% for like the crazy manufacturers who have tons of little parts that they have to put together and smelt and work on. And like there's lots of stuff to keep track of. Yeah. 1% for businesses like ours, which are just professional services, law firms, engineering firms, architecture firms. It's invoicing and payroll. The accounting is relatively basic. But it feels to me like that number is going to fall dramatically. And the 1 to 3% is going to maybe go to like 0.25% or 0.5% down into like a 1.5%, 2%. If a lot of these menial tasks can stop being done by humans and instead be done through these softwares. what when you think about this, what's the first step that we need to take if we're going to assess this? What are we looking for in our accounting departments to assess how we should attack it? Because I loved your statement about software is there to amplify, right? Technology is there to amplify our output. How do we judge whether or not we're just getting sucked into another monthly service fee for some SaaS product that we don't need, that's going to take us more time and not save us time? How do we really assess that?
Yeah, well, I think when you're adopting any technology, the first month or two, that implementation phase, however long it takes. Look, if you're doing, you and I both know, if you're doing NetSuite, first 6 months are pretty much shot, and then the next 6 months after that is like user adoption, not just technical adoption. So
Right.
that's a pretty big burden for most of us. That's way far out of the zone of what we're looking to do. But with any technology, there's always going to be change, right? And I think that, the question is, okay, do I have the appetite for that change or do I not? And how do you measure that, right? How do I know, is this the one I want to jump on? And I do think it comes back to time auditing, right? It's how much time are we spending on this and how much resources are we spending on this? Um, what I think is a huge opportunity ultimately is we are spending a lot of resources today on average, um, doing the books and getting the reports generated and then analyzing those reports and making those strategic decisions. All of that as resource. That's time resource, that's money resource, that's salary resource. If we can shrink all of that goes back into the business. That's more marketing, more sales efforts, more, things that really drive the top line directly, whatever it might be. That is a really exciting opportunity here. And I think that it comes down to that time audit. How much are you, spending on those things? And another way to look at it, Matt, and I'll shorten this thing up, is where do you want to go? I think that's a really big one. I do talk to a lot of business owners that are often kind of just growing linearly and comfortable with that growth, but they might have goals for exiting the company, or they might have goals for handing it off to their kids or whatever it might be. And I think when you approach that territory, the financials become a little bit important. So you might not have been spending a lot of time on it, but you weren't also getting the output. It wasn't used as a strategic guide. But if you want to evolve your business where your financials become a strategic guide for you, then the old accounting that you were doing isn't going to cut it. And so what do? Do you hire people, or do
Yeah.
you get some technology that can automate it? And I think that's a really interesting part as well.
It's funny because I think what I heard is something that this article talks about. It's like kind of got to go back to the basics of planning. If you're going to spend the money on a software, what does the before look like and what does the after look like? And the after should look like a lot less human hours, or you didn't do it right. Right? The technology.
Yeah.
So I think about, our three big pillars at TGG, which is an org chart, a Gantt chart, and a project plan.
Mm-hmm.
Like you want to do kind of a before and after org chart to see, all right, do we need, Johnny to spend 30 hours a week on this? No, we now cut it down to 5 hours a week. Okay. There's got to be some cost justification, which by the way, makes me very happy. A lot of times I get sometimes into these technology things and people are like, but look what it can do. And I'm like, well, yeah, how much is it going to make me?
Yeah, exactly.
But look what it can do. That's not the question I want to have answered. I want to know, it's nice and sexy, but is it making me money and getting me towards my goals? And so I really think there's kind of a back to a non-technological answer there, which is, this is what I heard you say, at least, maybe I misunderstood it, but like, understand what your org chart looks like now. We're going to implement this new technology. What does your new org chart look like? And we just got a question that I think is an interesting one. And that is, should I be replacing my accountants with technology? And I want to take a quick stab at this I want to hear what you have to critique what I say on this.
Let's do it.
So my answer is absolutely. That's what technology has been doing since we invented the wheel. Right? We invented a wheel, and now all of a sudden one person could push stuff that it used to take 4 people to carry. We eliminated 3 jobs, right? And then we had industrial revolution and all these things. And throughout the whole, advent of technology, our standard of living has gotten better. So I really think that it's not a bad thing that we're looking for ways to replace human beings, but I'd like to hear your opinion on it.
Yeah, I certainly think that's where we're headed ultimately. I think that, when I talk to clients of ours, we definitely advise that, hey, look, maybe keep your bookkeeper on staff, your staff accountant, but maybe you can get leaned up over here and save yourself, upwards of 6 figures a year on some salaries that you might have been paying, but maybe have one person or maybe have a fractional CFO, as people like to have, but then empower and amplify that one person with a lot of the technology that's out there today. And I think that, so the way I see it, Matt, is more evolution. Yes, I agree with you. Like, we're headed there,
Yeah.
but today we're not. I wouldn't go there quite yet. I would keep somebody on staff, a trusted kind of advisor that you feel good about today. But I think that the time will come as we evolve more and more, where this is all going to get automated. Because, like I told you, tech and accounting are actually a match made in heaven. It's ones
Yeah.
and zeros. It's black and white. There's a right and a wrong answer to doing it, and I think you know that better than
Yeah.
anybody, right?
For sure. I think it's interesting. We got another question out of the audience that I think is smack exactly where you're talking about this, which is, can you talk to me a little bit about trusting the security of this stuff? Well, one of my first businesses, not one of my first business was a business called iShopHere.com back in 1996.
Mhm.
And we were putting shopping sites that used to send catalogs out. We were aggregating them and putting them on the internet. And the constant thing that I heard from all of these companies that were pushing back on it was, nobody will ever put their credit card online. Right? No one will ever do this. There's no chance. And then you think about it, and 30 years later, 25 years later, it's like, of course you're putting your credit card into everything.
I'm trying to get my credit card offline. I've got it everywhere at this point.
It's not possible, is it? I mean, if you're going to use Amazon or anything else, your credit card's there. My question for you is we talked about blockchain in the beginning. Can we go back to how blockchain could actually make us safer? Because again, I think you're right. I think most people orient themselves and hear the word blockchain and they immediately think Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But how are accounting softwares using the blockchain to make us safer? And the security part that I think is a real concern for a lot of people.
Well, what's interesting too today, Matt, is that a lot of security is kind of built into a lot of infrastructure. So a lot of accounting softwares these days are getting built on top of things like I don't know, the Microsoft Enterprise Azure Cloud, right? And that's got security built into it and their own blockchains and things like that. But and so I think that from a security standpoint, the only thing I would recommend to people is, know who you're working with, right? Make sure that their infrastructure is built on something that's credible and has the white papers to back it up. I think blockchain is a really interesting technology, though, Matt. I do think that we're going from that centralized system, right? Centralized banks, clearinghouses in the case of finance, where we trust these third parties to do their work to verify people and parties and transactions, to a trustless system. But how do you do that? And it's through the cryptography. So you can't, once these blockchains get locked, you can't unlock them very easily. And even if you can, and even if you do unlock them, you need to have consensus across the decentralized system, because these blockchains are decentralized nodes across a computer network where everybody has to have an exact matching blockchain.
Sure.
So if somebody wants to tweak one and try to cheat the system, every other node is going to break and say this blockchain isn't adding up anymore, right?
Yeah,
And
I
I
think
think that kind of technology.
yeah, that makes sense to me. I think it's fascinating to see what's going on, because I don't know if you do this, but I wake up in the morning and I'm kind of a finance dork, so I immediately turn on CNBC or Bloomberg, and they inevitably have somebody on the floor of the exchange still, and I'm always like, there's nobody else there. Like, they used to be paper tickets that people traded back and forth, and that's how it worked, and runners going up and down the stairs, and and today it is all done on the blockchain, and everybody is verified automatically, instantaneously. And like you said, it's amplifying people. Instead of having a runner run up and down the stairs, you can do 5,000 trades in the same amount of time. And so I wonder, I see what Quicken, like Intuit's doing, for example, with QuickBooks. They're now paying people to get off of their desktop QuickBooks version to go onto the online version. And the rumors that I've heard is because they're building their own blockchain of vendors so that they can eventually automate data entry. Is that even reasonable? Does that sound like something that can be done? And if so, what is the technology already here and we just don't know about it? Or is this like 30 years off in the future?
I think two answers. I think technologically, yeah, absolutely possible. I think you could do it today. I think it's a lot about adoption, right? I mean, technically, Bitcoin could replace, national currencies if you wanted, but there's still human adoption that hasn't there, right? We're not there yet to adopt it. So in the case of Intuit wanting to create a vendor blockchain, that's really interesting. And yeah, we can do it. And that company has a wide, I will say, very, very wide footprint, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, how many small businesses are on there and how many
I think it's
transactions are running through?
yeah, it's like 60 million.
Yeah, it's
That's
huge.
that's a lot of businesses around the world,
And different types of businesses
right?
spend different types of money and different types of vendors. You're either at
Yeah.
Home Depot or maybe you're buying flowers from the wholesaler or whatever it is. So their net is cast pretty wide. And so I see definitely potential in that technology without a doubt.
Interesting. All right. Well, let's dive into a little bit of kind of what you've been working on here at
Yeah.
TGG and share a little bit about kind of we've got this hub product that does really three things. It validates, automates, and then gives advice. Talk to
Yeah.
me a little bit about hub and what are the I'm going to keep using your term because I love it. How it amplifies the human accountant. So what are we talking about here in terms of this technology and how are we going to amplify people's performance?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I'll talk a little bit about the three things you mentioned, Matt, because you're spot on. It's kind of what was it? Verify and what was it? Automate and
I think I was saying verify the data, get clean data, right?
yeah.
You were saying that one of the things I think early on you were saying one of the things that these like RPAs or other software can do is automate routine data entry, and
Yep.
it'll do it in a way that is, especially in accounting, that is black and white. We've said that a couple of times tonight. It'll do it in a way that is 100% correct because it won't think, like it's just going to do it. And
Exactly.
so how do we make sure that we're getting the data right? And then how do we make sure we're getting our reporting out in a timely basis in an automated fashion? And then how do we get some sort of, like you talked about, generative AI, where AI is actually generating ideas for us that might improve our businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so at Hub Analytics, we've been in development for a couple of years now. The gap we saw in the market was pretty simple for us. So we are kind of what we like to say is we're entrepreneurs. We built this by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs kind of thing. And the gap we saw in the market, Matt, as you know, is if you look at a big public company, right, a Fortune 100 company, they've got all the bells and the whistles. They've got huge accounting teams, finance teams, analysts. They outsource analyst firms. They got all the things, and they got all this financial wizardry to help them make incredible decisions and blah blah blah. But you look at the average small to medium sized business, and you just don't have that, and it's hard to get that right.
Oh,
To get all of that, you need to have proper accounting done. So that's data entry. But then you also need somebody double checking all of that data entry, making sure it's done correctly. So that's like a two-part job. Then you've got somebody, what we'll call the controller, that's kind of putting it all in the storylines and charts and graphs, telling you what you do month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year, where it's seasonality in the business, cyclicality in your business, all those things, right? And then you've also need kind of a CFO of types, right? That trusted advisor who can translate all of that financial information and also look forward and say, hey, here's what we need to do. Not here's what happened, but here's what we need to do. These are the decisions we need to make if we're going to hit our, profit margin goals, if we're going to hit all these things. And so when you look at a small to medium sized business, that's a lot, right? That's like 500 grand to $1 million a year in salaries and benefits. And so what we found as entrepreneurs and talking with them as well is there's a gap, right? You don't go and buy the accounting team. You don't go and stand up the accounting department because it's just too much overhead. And so what most people end up with is bookkeeping at its kind of simplest form. And the entrepreneur is left to put their CFO hat on and say, okay, great, you got a bookkeeper. Now use your numbers and go figure out how to do all this stuff. And it's like that's a skill set. And I think it's a good thing that a lot of entrepreneurs don't. It's probably what makes them very successful. But that's the gap we're trying to fill. And so at Hub Analytics, we broke down the accounting department into four main roles. It goes back to that time audit that I was mentioning, right? There's kind of a staff accountant that's doing your books or a bookkeeper, right? Then you have an accounting manager who double checks the fidelity of the books. Then you have your controller and your CFO. And we looked at all of that and we thought, well, what can we automate here? And so we thought, look, we think it's good that people still have their bookkeepers and we don't really want to touch the data entry right now, but we can verify So what we've done is we actually built integrations into accounting information systems, QuickBooks being the most obvious one and the biggest one. We plug in directly with QuickBooks and we can verify every single transaction and all the accounting that's been done to make sure that, number one, the accounting is done accurately. And if it's not, we send it back to the bookkeepers to help them do it better, or check those things and figure out those red flags that we've shown. After that, we also automate all of the reporting. So, I mean, most folks we know spend hours a month ending their books and doing the balance sheet and the income statement and the cash flow analysis. Once we've verified that the accounting has been done properly, then we can automate the generation of all of that reporting with the click of a button. So it takes about 30 seconds. Once the accounting's done, they hit generate reports and you get a balance sheet, an income statement, and a cash flow analysis, plus quite a few other things. So if there's KPIs you like to track, if there are certain company goals you want to track, we want to be at X revenue in the next 24 months, you can start tracking month over month automatically. And all of that reporting gets built out in literally 30 seconds, click of a button, which is nice. And then the last portion, this kind of relates to the CFO, is we're using generative AI. We have our own proprietary hub AI that we're leveraging to generate strategic guidance around the numbers. So not as it you're just getting a balance sheet and it's like, hey, now you're on your own. It's, hey, here's what your balance sheet is telling you. Here's how your equity changed in the business, or here's how your P&L changed month over month. Your COGS went up by a couple of points. We think that's driven by an increase in, the cost of lumber if you're in construction, whatever it might be. Maybe look for a different supplier, things like that. So we're trying to guide our entrepreneurs and our customers towards a place where they can leverage their financial data as a strategic advantage in the marketplace for themselves. So
Yeah, that's interesting. There's a lot in there that I and we're starting to get a bunch of questions in here. So around this software, maybe the best thing to do is it possible, Tommy, for you to give us a little look at what you're talking about here?
yeah, absolutely. So let me go ahead and spin up my screen and we'll go straight into the product here. So hold on. All right.
In the meantime, I'm gonna try to, while you're pulling that up, there's a question up here that I think we can probably answer, that I'd love to hear your opinion on too, which is, what are the things I'd be dumb not to be automating right now? Like today, what are the things I'd be dumb not to be automating? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and then I'll give you my thoughts too.
Well, I think report generation is an easy one for me. You should not be spending any time in report generation. That's the lowest hanging fruit. Plug directly into your accounting system. You should be able to click a button and get as rich of reporting as you need. Everything that we do here at Hub Analytics is institutional grade. So our customers are able to take their month-end reports and literally pretty much get a bank loan, right? It's like, hey, you need to get all this data. It's like, no, I've already got it. Here it is. And it took me 40 seconds to generate. That's the easiest. But I'm curious to get your thoughts. What do you think?
Well, there's a handful of softwares that we use, that I use personally, that I think are really, really good. That the Ramp card is one. I know there's a bunch of other competitors, which I'm sure are just as good as Ramp. So I'm not trying to necessarily just sell Ramp, but I think Ramp card, Bill.com, I think Expensify, I think there's a handful of softwares, depending on the industry, obviously, but a handful of software that I think everybody should be using right now to lower the amount of human interaction in there. If you're still like turning in receipts and doing reimbursements that way, that I think you can automate that stuff today.
Yeah, it's a good one.
The other thing I was thinking about is your comment about the RPAs. If you've got like, something that's 100 or 1,000 of something, I'm just thinking about like the example I used earlier. If you're a big law firm and you do, 1,000 different invoices every single month, to me, this is where RPAs are a great place to come in and automate all of that invoicing, and tie it directly into the timesheet system so that it automatically reconciles and no humans should have to touch that. That to me feels like another place that right now, if you had a business like that where you've got a lot of those things, I'd want to be automating.
Yeah, it's funny. I've told folks before that a good test for, opportunity for automation is swivel chair work. And this is generic, but it's surprising how much is out there. Is if you're ever doing any double data entry, if you're taking one Excel sheet and putting it into another, or taking it from an Excel sheet and into a system, data entry in general can be automated without a
Yeah.
doubt. And so that's always kind of, if you're doing any work like that, that's just an opportunity to connect systems, if you will, connect data and
You call
streamline.
that swivel work? I like that. Swivel your
Swivel chair work, right?
chair.
You're going from one monitor to the next.
All right, well, let's check out this stuff in Hub because we got a lot of questions about this stuff.
Great. So just to be sure, because I toggled my screen here a little bit, you're still looking at Hub Analytics with Global Trade Connect Corp. Is that right?
No, we're looking directly at a beautiful scene. Looks like a mountain scene.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. We'll try this one more time.
Oh,
How's
there we
that?
are. Okay, we're back.
There we go. All right. Great, Matt. So as you know, TGG's a customer of Hub Analytics. So we've set you guys up here as kind of an agency portal, but Global Trade Connect Corp is a fictitious company we've created in this demo environment for us all. So first and foremost, when you get in here, we're going to go back to those three things that we automate. The three things we're focused on is verifying your accounting accuracy. The second thing is automating the book generation or the report generation, excuse me. And last one is giving you the power to have that those actionable insights delivered to you. So you don't have to be a financial expert to know, what do I do about this stuff? So first and foremost, our data diagnostics portal. So this is a proprietary 150-point inspection engine that we've created that spans 17 different categories of proper accounting to call out what is kind of flagging and what is not flagging as far as proper accounting best practices, right? So in this portal here, we're going to show you, hey, the chart of accounts has identified multiple fixed GL asset GL accounts, but no depreciation GL accounts. That's, that may result in overstated gross profit. Maybe go take a look at this. And we're pulling this again, keep in mind, we're pulling this directly from, in this case, we did it with QuickBooks. So we're pulling the accounting directly out and saying, hey, this doesn't quite add up. Now, our users can go in here and say, hey, this isn't for us, or, we looked on this and it's good. We're all over it. Sure. You can decline it.
So it just highlights things that look like they're off. They may not be off, but it looks like they're off for some reason.
Yeah, that's right. We didn't want to go full blown, like just auto correct people's accounting. We think that there's still a place for, the human to be there today. And so we really designed this to be more as a flag system so they can go in and look at this. And so the entrepreneur can go in here and go, yeah, okay, let's work with our bookkeeper. Let's clean this up a little bit. Right.
But it's like automating that data integrity instead of having a person literally go through and audit every line item and look at it. This is going through and combing. Did I hear you right? It's combing through every transaction?
Every single transaction.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. And so this is really helping. We've seen a lot of customers come to us with, I guess, less than ideal books, and given time, given a couple months down the road.
You can say it, Tommy. The state of accounting is pretty abysmal in this country.
It can be, no doubt about it. And so, but what's neat is over a period of time, we're helping train, sometimes in-house bookkeepers on what best practices look like and sorting out some financial data for our customers so that they start looking at the numbers with a little bit more confidence, right? Because garbage in is, as we know, garbage out.
So first thing here is data integrity. This is going to highlight things that might be wrong. What's the second thing? You're automating reports is one of the ones that you said.
Absolutely.
A definite thing with that question we got, that it was right now, this is something to automate. Can you show what that looks like?
Absolutely. So in our platform, in this left-hand navigation bar, there's a bunch of different inputs here, right? You have KPI builders, data sets, things like this, company goals, and you can all input all of this stuff. But all of that goes into the report. So once we pass that first state, and actually I'll go do a different one for us because it'll be a little bit more in tune. But once we get past the accounting verification, then we can kind of move on to report generation. And so instead of spending hours and hours trying to put this stuff together and especially formatting it, like some basic formatting stuff, which takes way longer than it should, we can come in here and say new financial package, choose the month and the year that we want and hit continue. And that'll generate in about 30 seconds time. Now, when you get that, it comes up in a draft format so people can look at it before we lock it down. If you want to lock it down, you click publish and do that. But we'll go into one of these because this is what gets generated in a matter of about 30 seconds, right? And so and give it a little time here. These page numbers are going to render in just a moment. But what we give our customers is this, is all of this, and this can be customized. If they want to shorten this, they can, right? We've kind of thrown everything in the kitchen sink in here as a demo. But if you look here, you've got balance sheet, you've got income statement, you've got cash flow statement, all the basics. That's a fact. You're always going to have that. But we've layered in all of this incredibly rich data, right? So a business overview, management and ownership, advisors, executive summary. Now, this is a really interesting part because this starts to weave in the final part, which is the automated commentary or the actionable insights. This executive summary that you're seeing right now, this is all generated through the artificial intelligence that we have here at Hub to generate a narrative around how your business is performing month over month. COGS, revenue, net operating income, whatever it is, what's going on in your business. This is all automatically generated so the entrepreneur, the business owner can come in here and say, wow, how's my business doing? What's this thing calling out? Oh, I didn't notice that. Let me go into that. We think this stuff is very interesting.
Wait, Tommy, just to make sure, that whole front page there, a human did not write that.
Nope, a human did not write this.
Your Hub AI system wrote that whole thing.
100%. 100%. And it was done in 30 seconds time, analyzing the books that we've already verified are accurate.
Does it also analyze, does it do benchmark data and like, does it integrate with your goals and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me click on this little icon up here. This is all the table of contents that I already just showed you. But if we want to look at something like company goals, right? Goal number 1, achieve, and this is a little bit outdated, so we'll forgive that one, but achieve 2024 annual revenue of 25 million. Are we on track for that one, right? It's going to track that. If you want to see things like critical KPIs to your business, sure, we'll look at your current ratio or your DSO versus DPO. If you're approaching a cash cliff in the next couple of months, you're going to want to know that, right? Especially in capital intensive businesses. If you want to look at like customer retention data, customer changes, sign versus churn, all of this is pumped out in 30 seconds at the end of every single month. Now, the last part I'll get into is the balance sheet and the income statement. What I think is really neat, everyone's kind of seen these before, but what's really neat is that every single line item in both your balance sheet and your income statement come with a note. This note corresponds with AI generated commentary, similar to that page I was just showing you, Matt, to what's going on in the business. It's giving you a full commentary of, hey, this is what this line item is. Here's how it's fluctuated recently, and here's what you might want to do to improve it to improve the profitability of your business. And we even go a step further, and we actually do profitability recommendations, right? Well, we will literally call something out and say, Expo Tech should consider optimizing its direct materials procurement process. It accounts for over 98% of the COGS in this business, right? And so these are recommendations that are AI generated to help the business owner maybe make some strategic decisions in their business so that their finances can actually help them make decisions versus just tell them what actually happened, right? We want to look forward with financial data, not just backwards. And that's really the goal here. And I'll say it again, I already said it once, but look, a lot of Fortune 100s, Fortune 500 public companies, they have a lot of this. They're crunching numbers and they're paying a lot of money. We're trying to bring this into the small to medium-sized business market at a fraction of the cost, and we think we're doing a pretty good job. We're pretty excited about it. And so,
yeah, Tommy, as I'm watching this, I go back to the first comment we made about that article. It looks like you just replaced all the accountants.
Well, we don't like to lead with that, Matt, but yeah, it's pretty powerful software, and it's certainly, I think the exciting part is it's about resource reallocation.
Yeah.
Right? Every business owner we work with has somewhat of limited resources. They want to spend it in their business and all they want to grow. This is creating a lot of abundance in resource that wasn't there before that they can reallocate to other things in the business. And that's a big deal. It's a really big deal. And their financial data has really become a strategic tool for them,
But it's pretty fantastic. I was joking in that you're going to replace all the accountants, because one of the things that I think is still so important is there isn't fully automated data entry yet. So you got to have that done. And B, we're not at a point yet where we don't need somebody to help implement these things. It's one thing to get the ideas out of generative AI. It's a whole nother thing to go and implement and execute on these different profitability ideas, for example, which I think are fantastic.
Yeah.
If anybody's not getting profitability recommendations out of your accounting department, that's another thing. What should you do right now? Go back to your accounting department and demand that you get some ideas, even if it's out of a human and not AI, because I think there's always a way to make things better. But Tommy, we're coming here to the end of today. Like we said, we start on time, end on time. Here were my takeaways. I just want to make sure I understood this right.
Yeah.
The first take, like, what do we do right now? Start with your basic org chart. I think you said this, and say, what if we implement these other technologies, what does our ending org chart look like, and how much time, money are we saving by implementing this technology? Don't just go out and buy technology for technology's sake. That's what I heard is sort of number one. Number two is there are a lot of options out there to automate a whole host of things, whether it's repetitive data entry kind of stuff. I loved your swivel analogy. Like, yeah, the swivel thing, that sounded like, yes, those are things we need to automate. And the third real thing that I took away from this is we've got to make sure that we're automating the data integrity. And I think that tool that you've got, what did you call that tool that
Our data diagnostic solutions, double checking all the transactions. Yep.
I mean, that's taking a person out that's working way better than any human could. Right? There's no chance that a human could look at every single transaction and come up with this. So that to me seems like another giant takeaway. And then the fourth takeaway is really a non-technology takeaway. That is, I hope these things continue to evolve like this, but we're still going to need people to help execute. We're still going to need people to help implement. And so those were my four takeaways out of this.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, Matt. I mean, there's just a lot of opportunity out there right now. It doesn't require the same amount of time and energy and resources to automate and streamline your businesses as it did even 5 years ago. And I think it's, if you're not automating today, you need to be, especially in accounting. It's a match made in heaven.
So if people want to find you, how can they find you, Tommy, to talk about this hub product, hub AI product, learn more about Chat GPT, or
all the above.
All
the above. Sure.
How can people get a hold of you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Look, I'll be the first one to say, head directly to our website, click on contact us, and we will be in touch with you. It's hub-analytics.com. You can also email me directly, which is tommy@hub-analytics.com. So feel free to go directly at me if anyone wants to. I'm happy to have a conversation and talk about opportunities to automate accounting for you all. But certainly go to our website, read up. We got a lot of great material on there as well.
Well, Tommy, thank you so much. I think Aubrey put your contact information in the chat as I see it. So we did not get to all the questions. I apologize, but we are going to wrap up here at the top of the hour. Tommy, again, thank you so much for your time and expertise. I learned a lot out of this. There's a lot of really interesting terms that I was definitely mixing up. And so it's nice for me to feel like I know a little bit more about this, but more importantly, have a little bit of a roadmap. So thank you very much. Thanks to everybody who helped put this on. Aubrey Miller, as always, you're wonderful for putting these things on. And thanks for all the attendees and all your questions. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all. Thanks, Matt.